Okay. So a quick recap. We are discussing taking backup of on-premises environment to Azure cloud. So when you want to take backup of on-premises environment to Azure cloud, use recovery services vault, and you can take backup of virtual machines on-premises, SQL, Exchange, SharePoint on on-premises, bare metal on on-premises, and you can also take backup of files and folders and system state of your on-premises environment. So if you're taking backup of files and folders, you install an agent on the file server. If you take backup of system state, you install the agent on the server where you are taking backup of. Okay. Now that agent we call it as MARS, which basically stands for Microsoft Azure Recovery Services Agent. If you are taking backup of VM, SQL, Exchange, SharePoint, and bare metal, you will be setting up a server which we call it as maps, which is basically Microsoft Azure Backup Server. So the agent will help you to talk to your vault. In case if you are using a backup server, the backup server will help you to talk to your vault. Right? So you basically deploy your backup server and register itself with the vault, or you deploy an agent on the server, register that server with the vault. Okay? So this is how things will be working. Now, where do I get these agents or this backup? How do I set up this backup server? Where do I get this software and other stuff? Let us try to understand this, and then we will see how do we take backup of files and folders. We are not going to talk about backup server. It takes at least 2 hours to set up that, and it is not needed as well. But I'm going to explain how it is actually going to work. Right. So in order to take backup, as I said, you need to create a vault, which is recovery services vault. So you can go to the recovery services vault service, right? And then you go ahead and create a vault, right? So this vault, because you are taking backup of on-premises environment, make sure that this vault is closer to your on-prem, which means the region, whatever is closer to your network. If you select that, then there will be very good network performance. So I'm naming this as my vault, right? And then you can put it in central India. Create the vault. So the backup that whatever I take will be taken to Azure cloud through this vault. Right. So this is our recovery services vault. Right. So as I said, you can go to getting started backup. Right. When you hit this backup option, so it is asking you this question: where is your workload running? Right. So we have our workload running on premises. Now, then it asks you, what do you want to take backup of? Right? Do you want to take backup of files and folders, or virtual machines on Hyper-V, virtual machines on ESXi, or SQL Server, SharePoint, Exchange, system state, or bare metal? Now, based on
Vijay, what is the system state?
System state is nothing but your OS backup with operating applications. Right? So, for example, if you got IIS web services and you want to take system state backup, it is not only taking backup of your operating system, but it also takes IIS web services backup as well. If you want to take only IIS web services backup, you can use system state, or you want to take backup of Active Directory, you can use system state. Right?
Okay.
Basically, OS backup. Right?
Okay.
Now, what I'm doing is I'm selecting these two options of, I want to take backup of Hyper-V VMs and VMware VMs. And when you hit this prepare infrastructure, This basically tells you what you should actually be doing here, right? It says that boss, install a backup server. Then you get this backup software from here, backup server setup software from here. And then it gives you something called as credentials, which we call it as vault credentials, using which your backup server will be registered to this vault. So that's how your on-premises backup server will be talking to this vault. So if you look at closely this download maps or backup server software, so this is, the application that which you need to download, and that you will be installing on some Windows 2019 or 2016 server, right? So once you have this particular server installed on this server, you will be using these credentials, right? You see this download credentials. We're using this. The server will be registered to the vault. Now this backup server, you should be installing it on Windows 2019 or 2016, and this is the downloader, right? So it's around 4 GB, 4.2 GB of installers that which you need to download it and install it on a Windows server. So that's how you will be setting up this, right? So what are the things you can take backup of? You can take backup of SQL Server, Hyper-V VMs or VMware VMs, SharePoint server, Exchange server, and even if you have some client, which means Windows 10 or Windows 11 desktops, you can also take backup of all those things, right? So this is the advantage of the backup server, right? So again, once you set up it, you download this vault and import it and register it to your, what do we call it as, vault, right? So if you got a requirement of maybe SQL Server, SharePoint, Exchange, or even bare metal, so you will be going with the same maps. That the same server you should be going with. In case if you got a requirement of taking backup of, let us say, files and folders, that only files and folders I want to take backup, right? Then it doesn't ask you to set up a backup server. Rather, it is asking you to download an agent and install on that server where you have these files and folders, right? So if you got a file server where you have these files and folders which you want to take backup of, so you should be installing this agent on that server. And the same the case when you have a requirement of taking a system state backup. So if you want to take system state backup, you can go with the agent itself, right? So as I said, based on your requirement, you will be using either maps or you will be using a Mars, right? So then what we are going to do for this is we are going to demonstrate this files and folders option, right? So we have a VM. So let us say this VM as a file server. On this file server, we got some files and folders, and we want to take backup of these files and folders which are on this file server. So in order to take backup of this, as I was already saying, because it's a file server, you need to install what? You need to install an agent here, which is nothing but Mars. So once you install agent here, this agent will be registering itself to your recovery services vault. So what does it do? It registers. So this is your vault. To this vault, it is registered. And how does it register? By using the vault credentials. You see these credentials? So using those vault credentials, you will register. So once this is registered, which means I have a communication between my on-premises file server and the vault. And of course, the agent will also install a tool using which I can initiate the backup. Okay, so we'll quickly see how does this actually work. So I have a file server on Azure itself, which we assume that it is on premises. Okay, so we assume that it is on premises. So let us log into this server. Right. So we'll assume this server as a on-premises file server. What do we do is we'll create a simple file share here. So name it as project ABC, and we can go ahead and put some data here. Right, and we want this on-premises file server data to be backed up to Azure cloud. Okay, so that's what our requirement is, right? So for that, as I said, this file server should have an agent installed. So what do we do is we'll go ahead and download that agent on this server. Before I go and download it, I'll disable this Internet Explorer enhanced security, right? So that we don't get those pop-up blocks. So then where do I get the link to download it? You need to go to the vault. Okay. If you go to the vault and tell your vault that, right, I'm going to take backup of files and folders. Let's go to the getting started option and tell that I want to take backup of on-premises environment, files and folders. When you hit this prepare infrastructure, then you got this link, isn't it? Install services agent or recovery services agent or NAS. Copy the link and download it, right? Save it. Sorry. Okay. So we need to install this agent. Let us go ahead and run it as an administrator. Okay, so if you look at this installation, right? So there are two folders it is showing. One is related to the installation, files itself. The other one is it is expecting you to provide a location for caching. So which means when backup happens on the same server, it requires a temporary storage location. So that it uses that for caching before it transfers the data to the vault. Right? So even for the download as well. So this caching, what they're expecting you is the caching should be kind of 5% at least of the overall backup data. In the sense, if you are taking backup of 100 GB data, then the caching location should be at least, there should be a free space of 5 GB on the drive where you have this caching location. Okay, a temporary storage location. And so the data should be pushed to the vault, isn't it? So it can go through your internet, or it can also go through your VPN solutions. If you have VPN solutions, then you can also use them to route the traffic. So we are going through the internet itself. Sometimes to access the internet, you may need some proxy details. If there is a requirement as such, you can specify them here. For us, it is not needed. periodic updates. Let us disable it. And it is checking the prerequisites needed. They are already there. So go and install this agent. So this agent creates a service. This agent also installs a tool using which you can schedule the backup. Right. So now you see installation is successful. Now what it is asking you is proceed with registration. Right. When you hit proceed with registration, it is asking you what credentials to register. Right. So then where do you get these vault credentials? The vault credentials you will be downloading it from here, recovery services vault, right? So below this download option, right? Download the vault credentials, right? So I'm saying that I already downloaded the agent and installed it. So I'm going to go and download this particular vault credentials. Okay? So you can go ahead and copy these credentials and put it on your system. So these vault credentials will have your vault details and some authentication credentials as well. So all you need to do is you need to browse it and feed these vault credentials to your agent. So if you look at closely, it's picking the vault with this name, my vault, region, subscription. Right? Expiry date is the expiry of these credentials in this vault. Right? It has nothing to do with this setup. Right? So this file can be used for 10 days. That's what it means. Okay. Now say next. Now backups are encrypted to protect the confidentiality of your data. Right? Generate or type a passphrase to encrypt and decrypt the backup from this server. So whatever the backup that is happening, that backup is encrypted. So in order to encrypt the backup, it is using some passphrase. So you can manually enter that passphrase here. Or if you it requires 16 characters, which is huge. If you don't have, if you want to generate, leave it Azure to generate a passphrase, you can generate one for you. Right? Now remember, this passphrase is very important, not only to encrypt the data, but even to decrypt. Which means when you are restoring the data on any other machine other than this, it will ask you the passphrase whatever is generated here. So that's why it is asking you a location where the passphrase to be saved. Okay, so I am saying that save the passphrase to the C drive. Okay, so there will be a text file that gets generated. In that text file, it will copy this auto-generated passphrase so that whenever you restore the backup, you can use that passphrase. So this is very critical. And you should not be keeping this on the same server where you are taking backup. You should be keeping this on some password vaults or some secure location. Right? So it is warning you, saying that you are keeping the passphrase on the local system itself. That's okay. We understand that it is a test machine. And again, it is warning second time, saying that you are keeping the vault credentials or passphrase. You are keeping the passphrase on the same server where you are taking backup, and you may get into a problem. That's what your warning is all about. I understand it. I'll say yes. Right? So this what it is doing is, now this server is getting registered to your recovery services vault. Once the registration is completed, now I can take backup of this server to my recovery services vault on Azure. So from on-premises file server, I'm taking backup to Azure vault. Now remember, the Mars agent, whatever you installed, supports only for Windows machine, right? So you cannot take backup of files and folders or system state backup using this Mars agent, right? So you can take backup of only Windows machines. Right. So it says that passphrase is saved here, right? So if you go to your C drive, so you should be seeing a file. This is your passphrase, and this is your, passphrase which is auto generated. So this is key. This is very important. Okay. Now you should be having this stored somewhere, right? So it is again giving you a warning related to storage of this file. Launch the recovery services agent. That option is selected. If I close it, right, the recovery services agent tool will be, or the backup tool will be automatically launched. Or you can close this. You have this shortcut here. You see this? You can launch it using it. Now this is the tool using which you can re-register if you want, because we already registered, it is not needed. You can schedule backup. You can recover the data if there is a backup already taken, right? So I want to schedule a backup. Right. So most of the options will be same like what we were discussing yesterday, right? So this wizard will help you to take backup of files and folders, and of course even system state as well, right? Now say next, click add items to select the files and folders you want to backup. So what files and folders you want to backup? I want to backup this folder and its content. So I'm selecting that. And if you have some exclusions in that, you can add it. Maybe sometimes you may have some files which you don't want to take backup of, you can exclude it. And then it is asking you backup schedule. Do you want to go with a weekly backup or daily backup? If it is daily backup, you are allowed to take 3 times backup every day. So which means I can take backup 3 times of my data. So all I need to do is I need to specify, right, timings. I'll leave that as 1 a.m. every day. And then the retention policy, as we were discussing yesterday, right? Daily retention, daily backup retention, weekly, monthly, and yearly retention. The same settings, whatever we were discussing yesterday. Okay? So by default, your daily backup is retained for 180 days. If you want to increase or decrease, you can do it, right? I'll leave that as is. Now, initial backup. Now, in the initial backup, you see 2 options, right? Initial backup online or offline, right? So when you go with online, which means the data will be transferred on the network. But when you go with offline, right? So you will be shipping the data to Azure. This you use specifically when you have large amount of data, right? So you may have some terabytes or petabytes of data, and uh, for you to take the initial backup, obviously it takes days, right? And you may not want to kind of have this backup running for days together. Initial backup, you can do an offline data transfer by using a data box disk or data disks option. If you recall our discussion on export import service or data box services in storage account discussion, same thing here, right? So the initial backup can be can be taken by using offline if the data is huge. But since our data is very small in size, I will go with online transfer. We'll say next. Right, confirmation, finish. Now this basically schedules the backup, right? So this is configuring the backup of your file share, whatever you specified, right? Now you see the backup schedule. Where is that? Yeah, this is a schedule. Every day at 1 a.m. the backup is happening. We don't have any backups yet because it has to start at 1 a.m., isn't it? Now you either excuse me, you either wait till this schedule triggers the backup, or you can use this backup now option, right? You can use this backup now option. You can take backup of the environment, right? So say I want to go with a custom backup. I don't want to have this schedule triggering it. I want to take a custom backup. Then you can use backup now option to take a custom or copy backup, whatever you want, right? So retention period, because it's a custom backup, you need to specify a custom retention period. And you are telling you're going to go and take backup of the same folder. If you want to change it, you can change it from here, right? Let's change things from here. And then you go ahead and initiate the backup. So this basically takes the backup of your files and folders of that folder, whatever we specified to take backup of, right? We will be completing this next week, guys. So we'll be starting a new batch. In case if you have any friends who are interested, refer them. It takes time because I think we have one MB. I have reduced that size. So one thing we need to know is, so it says 23 MB of data transferred, right? But the data that what we have is more than that, right? So you have uh, around the size 1 MB maybe, right? Then how much it say here? 53. Okay, that also includes some additional stuff. That's what it says. Compressed includes some metadata information about the backup also is there. That's why the size is more here, but that's fine, right? So now, if you look at latest copy of the data, so this gives you the time when the last backup has happened, and the oldest backup details also are available here. There is one backup point or recovery point, right? Now I assume that there is a problem, and maybe one of these files is gone, right? Maybe let us say this DNS, the load balancer files and the DNS files are deleted, and your business says to restore them from the backup, right? So then you have this option to recover, right? And again, remember, the recovery can be done on the source server itself, or the recovery can be done on the other server also, right? Not necessarily on the source server, you can also do it on the other server. But when you are recovering on the other server, then it will ask you the vault credentials. You see this vault credentials, right? So these things that which you need to have in this, okay? But since we are deploying this, restoring it on the same server, I'll say next, right? And then are you restoring the files and folders, or are you restoring the entire volume, or you are restoring the system state, right? We are restoring files and folders. Which date, sorry, which volume the backup was taken, C drive, right? Which dates and what time. If you have multiple times, then you will be shown all the 3 slots, right? You can take 3 times a day. That's what we were seeing earlier, right? Backup. So since I have only one restore point, that today at this time, I'll select this, and now you see this mount option. Now what basically happens here is the backup that whatever is available on Azure will be mounted to your server wherever you are restoring it. Like yesterday, when we were restoring files and folders of a VM, the disks were mounted, isn't it? Where yesterday we were running a script and we used a password, right? Similarly, the backup will be mounted to this particular server, right? So hit mount. It says it is mounting the recovery volume. Right. So it says there is a volume called as F, which is mounted, right? So if you go to your Windows Explorer, and there is this F drive, you see this, right? So if you go to this, the project ABC backup will be visible here. All you need to do is you need to copy the files that whatever you would like to restore and put it in the original location wherever you would like to restore them, right? So now I'm done with the restoration. I'll just go ahead and unmount it. Of course, you can also browse from here, right? So it takes you to the same thing and you can unmount, right? So once you are done with the copy, you will unmount, right? So this is how you can restore, the data in case if you have any requirement. Okay. Right. So the same tool can also be used to schedule a system state backup if you want, right? This tool we can be used for both files and folders backup, or this can also be used to schedule a system state backup. Now you see, instead of creating the files and folders, create a backup schedule for system state, right? When you say system state backup, it is going to take your operating system backup, right? So daily here in this particular case, you can take only once, right? Whereas when you go with files and folders, you can take 3 times in a day the backup of files and folders. But when it is system state, you can take it only one time, and then the retention period, monthly retention, and then weekly retention and daily retention. There is no yearly retention option here. And then you can just go ahead and confirm it takes the system state back. Right? Okay, you can also take system state backup of the environment. Okay. Now, if you go to your vault, right, go to your recovery services vault and look at this backup items, right? Under the backup items, you should be able to see this, right? There is one uh, backup item which is taken using the agent. In the sense, this is the file server that which you are taking backup of, right? So these items, when we talk about these Mars or maps, the configuration can be seen in the vault, right? But this information you cannot, uh, to go with. So this particular take backup option, right? You don't get those options of taking the backup of on premises and other stuff here. So all you get is if you go to these backup instances and you select, if you see the options here, you don't see those Mars agent related or maps related information here. So if you are taking backup of on premises environment, so the data of what items are getting backed, you can see it in the vault itself. You need to go to the vault and go to these protected items. Under the protected items, backup items, and under this backup agent, you will be seeing what are the on-premises servers that which are getting backed using the agent. Now, if you got a backup server, and that information will be listed here under the backup server details, right? Okay, that's how you will be taking backup of on-premises file server. Okay, if you got any questions on this, please ask. Okay, if no questions, we'll stop today here. Okay, Monday we'll be either going with monitoring or web apps and then couple of other PaaS services. We'll go with monitoring first. Okay, Monday we'll be finishing monitoring. Then there will be couple of other, I think 3-4 topics which will be pending. I will complete maybe by Wednesday or Thursday. We should be done. Any questions you have, we can take. Now, one thing that which go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. The backup happens over the internet here or based on the site-to-site VPN connection, right?
If you want, you can route it through site-to-site VPN, but if the VPN
Will choke the internet, right? Sorry, the bandwidth.
yes, that's what will happen. So you can
Okay,
route
okay.
through the internet. Reason being, it is encrypted using the encryption keys. But if you still want to go through the dedicated network, then you should be looking at the express route solution, not the site-to-site VPN.
Okay.
But at network layer, you need to route the traffic. So that you can't do it here in this configuration, right? So when you set up, you may have to talk to your network team, tell them that the traffic through this particular IP or network should be going through the express route connection to reach the Azure. So that can be done at the network layer.
Okay.
So here you cannot tell this tool to use a site to site or whatsoever. Right? All it knows is go through the network interface. That's all.
Okay.
Right. So before I forget, you may have some difficulty if you are practicing it. So deletion of the vault is kind of a pain. Okay. So when you use this vault, when you hit this delete vault, so don't use this option called as delete manually. Okay. So when you say delete manually, um, So it will basically ask you to delete all the dependencies and other stuff. So you need to go to each and every item and delete it, then delete the vault, right? That's what will happen, right? So when you're deleting it manually, right? So the easy way to delete the vault is to use this using PowerShell, right? Now this basically what it does is it gives you a script. When you run that script, it is going to delete all the dependencies and then remove the registered servers and other stuff, and then deletes the vault. So if you do it manually, you need to manually unregister all the servers, delete the backup configuration and remove the vault. But when you go with this script, right, it deletes all the dependencies, including the soft deletes, right, including the soft deletes. So when you are practicing, go and use this option, delete using PowerShell script. Download this PowerShell script. So they will give you this script, right? This is the script you'll get. And you can copy this script, right? This is a huge script. You can copy this and run this script in the Cloud Shell, right? You have this integrated shell, no? You can go to this shell. In the PowerShell mode, right? So you will be running this script, right? Just go ahead and paste it, right? So this scripts, it takes a minute or so, maybe more than 2 minutes sometimes. So once this script is executed, so this vault will be automatically deleted. So to delete a vault, it is a pain to delete it manually. So the suggestion is to use this script, right? So this script automatically removes all the dependencies and the registered servers, and then it goes and removes the vault. Right? Very easy and straightforward way to use it. Right? All you need to do is download the script. You can run it locally on your machine if you have PowerShell extensions, Azure PowerShell extensions installed, or you can run it on the Cloud Shell. Right? Okay. Right. So we should be seeing that, right? The recovery services vault successfully deleted, and when we go and refresh it, that vault should not be there anymore. Right? It says resource not found, which means it is deleted. Right? So like that, you can go ahead and delete the vault. Okay. Right. So with that, we'll stop here. If you got questions, we can take. Otherwise, we'll meet tomorrow at the same time. Yeah, you get that? You got a question?
No, nothing.
Yeah. Chalo guys, we'll meet tomorrow. If you have any friends who are looking for Azure training, please refer. That will help me, and you can also give feedback to them based on your learning experience. Okay. Chalo,
Okay,
thank you.
okay. Thank you.
We'll meet tomorrow at the same, sorry, on Monday, not tomorrow at the same time. Thank you. Bye.